Hello, and welcome to this edition of Stressless. We were fortunate to have a conversation with Kate Polga, a writing tutor in the Academic Tutoring Center at Asnuntuck. We began our conversation by having Kate tell us a little bit about her background.
My name is Kate Polga, and I'm a writing tutor here at Asnuntuck. I've been here for, 3 or 4 years. I don't even know. And I'm in the tutoring center and also an embedded tutor. You'll see me in one-on-one classes sometimes. And I really enjoy working with absolutely everybody on pretty much anything. We writing tutors do not just English assignments, but we'll also do any subject that involves writing. So we also help with things like that we don't necessarily imagine writing tutors could help with. So if you have any questions about who to go to talk to about anything in the college, we're usually good starting off.
Students a lot. What do you think makes it really hard for students when they're transitioning into, the college courses? A lot of times, a lot of our students are coming straight from high school, right? What is it that makes it, difficult for them?
Yeah, so there are a couple of things. With the students who are coming straight from high school, I do see that adjustment because college is so different from high school. Suddenly, all the accountability is on the student. There's really we do have wonderful support here, but it's just a little bit of a matter of finding it. And the schedule, you do your own schedule. Suddenly nobody else is doing that for you, so you have to learn time management, which maybe hadn't been a thing before. And also the studying, it's not just going to class. There is a tremendous amount of work required outside of class, so just showing up to class suddenly is not enough when you're in college. The other thing for this cohort this year, of course, is that those high school students graduated during COVID, so had maybe not a complete high school experience, and so that's a double whammy for those students. And then for the students who are coming back to college, who might have tried it and left, or just coming back to school, hadn't been to college at all yet, and had been spending some time doing other things, that also can be intimidating. And I think the biggest challenge there is confidence. And come see us. We'll help you with any glitches you have. Learning how to use Word, we'll help you. Anything. So yeah. That's what I tend to see.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of things you don't really think about when you make that transition, because things are just, it's always, you're learning new things and learning a new kind of environment, which is, we're all doing that now with the move to remote work and online. So, yeah, it can be it takes some.
Yeah, it's definitely been a learning curve. All right, so Kate, so what is context-dependent learning, and how can students use that to their advantage during finals?
Well, the best way I can sum it up is that you should take a balanced approach to everything as you approach finals. So it means don't worry about your assignment itself. Don't focus on that necessarily. Everything else around you is important too. So as you approach finals, make sure that you are also addressing your mental health, your technology, your environment around you. All of those elements are part of just as important to your learning as the actual content.
It's interesting because right now when we're learning, we're also where we're learning, usually at home, which can be difficult, right? But sometimes it's helpful to, when you're doing your studying and learning the material, and then when you go into your class to take the test or take the final or whatever, you kind of have some familiarity if you're doing it in the same space, right? Like if I'm at my desk, at home trying to study, and then I go and take the test for that subject area, I think some of that is really helpful just because you don't have to adjust yourself for, you know, your study time at home and then you go into the classroom and it's kind of a different environment, right? In a way, it's kind of lucky that you don't have to make those constant transitions environmentally every day like we would in the traditional space. Like, what would you say are some of the basic habits that students might be overlooking when they're studying now at home or taking tests at home? Because they're not in the classroom, maybe some of those habits that we would have developed on campus, maybe we just kind of let those lie. But what are some things that we overlook?
I think the main thing is the phone.
Yeah.
Put it on mute. Put it away. Out of the room would be ideal. I mean, we all know how distracting that is, but it's so easy to just say, "Oh, I'll just have it on mute." That's probably not good enough. It's still going to be buzzing and then distracting you while you're studying. So I think that for me is the major one, but also take into account, you know, what the best time of day is that you could study. When's it going to be quiet in your house? Because I know a lot of us have challenges where sometimes it can be noisy and there are lots of people around. So if you can figure out your schedule might be completely different because you don't have the library to go to right now. And also things like, you know, the ambiance, right? So the lighting, make sure you have proper lighting. And I mean, it sounds silly, but is your space tidy? Like, do you have a clean room? Maybe do that before you take your exam and it will help you. I think clutter isn't helpful to anybody. So,
Right.
It doesn't seem like it would make a difference, but it definitely can.
I see a lot of students, and I'm not criticizing. I think it's great and fabulous, but they're in bed when they're in, at least in class. So maybe take your exam or write your papers sitting upright at a desk might help for just making your mind that much sharper. I think it would. I personally think it would help because your mind doesn't associate that with sleep. And then we could talk about this later, but I do think that if you do everything in your bed, like studying and things, then that line gets blurred and it's that much more difficult to sleep. So
That's a good point.
I've heard people who study sleep patterns and things like that suggest that people keep not only your homework and computers, but also like televisions out of your room, the room where you sleep, because your brain can be very literal about, you know, what's in a room and what the purpose of a room is. So if you have like a television in your room, it kind of doesn't jive with that's the space where you need to rest and kind of wind down. Right.
Yeah, which goes to the, like, maybe have bright lights on for studying. Maybe that sounds silly, but maybe you think, oh, I need low light so I can relax. Well, maybe not. Maybe you need the bright lights so that if you are stuck in the same room to do everything, that might be a way to help you, your brain differentiate between the two.
As much as like Deb and I are on campus in our offices, right? And lighting is kind of harsh, but probably for a reason, right?
One would hope.
It keeps us businessy, kind of, you know, ready to go mentally. And it's something to really think about when you're, you know, creating, because it is you creating your space. You have that option now when you're studying from home. So
yeah. Yeah, and that actually segues very nicely into, you know, where you study, your environment, how that influences how you learn. So we kind of touched on some of the factors to consider when trying to find, you know, an effective space to study. I think, you know, some of those things like, you know, the comfort, you know, the lighting, we kind of touched on. But what would you say are some other things, Kate, that students should think about when they're evaluating picking a study space or, you know, picking a place to write their paper?
comfort actually does make a difference a little bit, though. Make sure you have a chair that, if you're going to be studying for an awfully long time, don't sit hunched over, the stool that you had when you were in kindergarten, like one of those little, if that's what, try to get something, if you can, a little more comfortable. I do think that, yeah, I'm just picturing I have kids. So I have a daughter. I walked in and my daughter was she was actually at her little chair and with her little kid-sized table, and she's, 22. Like, what are you doing? So she upgraded, and lo and behold, it made a difference. So that was a real life example of how that can help. So yes, I think we've all had that adjustment of suddenly having to work at home and full time and study at home. And what do you do well, I surround myself with books. So surround yourself with the things that you like, right? And that can help. So if it's your favorite stuffed animal there on your desk, and that will be a comfort for you, do that. Make sure that you are able to have a space to spread out and a place for everything, so that you aren't piling everything up on top of each other too, because that's another thing. Clutter, yeah, especially at the end of the semester.
Oh, yes.
Like, when we say comfort, I'm not, like you said, it's not comfort like laying down and hunching over on the sofa, but more, is it a comfortable temperature, or is it is the lighting bright enough for you to do your work? Cleanliness, right? All of these things I think factor in, and kind of, I think, trying to think of it as if your mind is very literal, right? Like, this is my workspace, so it should be kind of set up like a workspace so that my brain will be ready to learn, right? I think there are other things that we also have to consider since we're at home, right? And I think layout is sort of something that we don't really think about, right? And that includes a lot of different factors. So what are things that you would suggest students try to strive for when they're considering that space and the way it's kind of set up?
I think that having, we mentioned good lighting. I also see that a lot of students do have the lighting thing down because they have this special light for like TikToks. So they have, but that actually is helpful. So it shows them, look, lighting is important when you're doing a video one-on-one, or it's also important when you're trying to read and to review your material. I think that having your notes out on one side, and if you have a whiteboard, somewhere to scratch out notes. People tend to just do it all online now, but I think really handwriting helps. It's something I recommend when you actually get into the nitty-gritty of studying. I always recommend looking when you're doing slides. Annotate, write it down. Don't do it on a computer. Like, I don't do one on your phone and then on this computer. Use your actual pen and paper.
Right. I mean, it's easy to confuse studying with like reading, right? Like a lot.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Right. A lot of times we're thinking, oh, well, I read through it, right? So, but
I hear that all the time. Yeah. I read it,
right? But I've heard it said that, like you're saying, Kate, like, even if it's just like a notebook or something, but the actual pen to paper or pencil to paper, that practice kind of move things from short-term memory to long-term memory.
Yes.
Which I don't think people really realize. I think too often we're assuming a lot of things about studying. Like, and I know students kind of get annoyed, like, I know how to do that already. But really, there are things about how the brain works and how memory works that you can help these things along. I mean, we're talking about lots of ways to do that here. But I think it's kind of easy to overlook those little things, right? Like writing those notes, actively participate, like interacting with that material from your classes, right? When you do that, you make that shift from short term to long term.
No, we used to think that highlighting was sufficient, and now there have been studies that have shown that that actually is not the case at all, that highlighting is kind of just like reading, and you feel good about it, though.
Yeah,
And a lot of students do use different color highlighters for different things.
For
And
organizing, that's separate, yeah.
and that does sometimes help to see, definitions in pink and, other things in orange. So, I mean, if it helps them to be able to organize.
Yes, as an organizational tool, it's one thing. But just as here, I'm highlighting what's important. Yeah. No.
That's right.
I think when we're at home trying to study, it's so hard to kind of get that privacy, or to try to get yourself kind of separated from interruptions, right? I mean, that's something to think about with your space. If I'm studying in the middle of the living room, I'm going to be constantly interrupted, right? Because people are coming in and out, and if you have young children, they're in and out, or television's on, right? What would you suggest, Kate, as far as, I know it can be hard to find privacy or private kind of areas where you can kind of concentrate?
I think if you tell your family or friends, whoever you're with, that you're studying or taking an exam, and that's kind of like you're working. It's so that they know that that's important, and that's do not disturb time. And I would make a sign. I do that.
Yeah.
I would make a sign and put it up, and so that they know you mustn't be disturbed, even if the kitchen table might be the place that you have to work. And come up with a schedule. Reserve that time. Reserve that, okay, I need an hour. I need between 3 and 4, and that's my time. And so you have that every day, and everybody will get used to it and know that that's your time.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're away, in the library or at school studying, that of course makes that separation. But you yourself in this space, when we're at home, you have to make that boundary and make it clear to those around you, right? And hopefully that, they'll play along too, because everybody's trying to do the same thing. Yeah, thank you, Kate. I want to mention though that we will supply a kind of grid for students in our Stressless Space online. So in our Stressless team, we'll give students a kind of outline for kind of rating their current study space for things like lighting, decor, privacy, what the space is like. It kind of, in a way, it's a good practice to make so that you can kind of see, oh, well, that's probably why my studying is not being effective.